For today's webinar, we will be looking at creating a continuous improvement master plan for the year ahead. Our presenter today is Ross Kennedy. Ross is the President and Founder of CTPM. He is recognized as Australasia's leading authority on total productive maintenance and operational excellence through TPM and lean methodology. So let's get started. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and I will now pass you over to Ross.
Thank you, Nelson, and welcome to our webinar, our first one for the year, and wishing everyone a very safe, healthy, prosperous 2017. And thank you for joining us. The topic we chose to start with was about creating a continuous improvement master plan for the year ahead, because we thought there might be some people out there who putting together their plans for their continuous improvement activities, and we thought hopefully this might just help you consider all what we've learned to be probably some of the important things as you plan out your continuous improvement activities. So the 4 areas we want to cover are understanding the critical parts of a continuous improvement plan, determining the focus of your CI activities, creating a CI master plan template for your site, and managing the master plan. So I thought first thing would be to start with this: why have a master plan? And we've probably all seen different posters up around organisations that try to prompt us into thinking about important things. This one about planning and preparation prevents poor performance. If you've seen the one from Benjamin Franklin, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And the last one from Dwight Eisenhower, plans are nothing, planning is everything. So I think there's plenty of messages out there to say that we should be planning things out rather than just ad hocly going out and saying, oh, let's go set up a value stream map, or let's go do a 5S activity in a part of the workplace. So why progress the journey? So as we put a plan together, we've got to have a reason for doing it, a reason for actually doing all our continuous improvement activities. And what we've found is basically the bottom line for why do continuous improvement is to improve the key success factors for your operation. And if we take that from a TPM and lean CI journey, and I'm thinking here more of like the factory environment and manufacturing plants, it's the key success factors for operations that we're trying to do. And for those who haven't seen our model, basically the idea is that you have a number of cause factors that lead you to your effect factor, and the effect factor is basically financials, or what a lot of people refer to as return on investment for the site. In other words, someone, owners, shareholders, whoever, have gone and invested money into the site, and they expect to get a return from their investment. If they get a good return from their investment, they'll continue investing, and they will bring in new equipment and new technologies and whatever to keep the business updated and going well. If they're not getting a good return on investment, they will stop putting money in, and there'll be no money for training, no money for new equipment, no money for anything, and becomes a very depressing place until it is no longer there. So I think we have to be very mindful that we do all this so that we have an impact on the bottom line. However, what impacts on the bottom line are the key success factors. You have your safety, have accidents, it's going to cost the company a lot of money, not to mention making it a very unpleasant place to work and not good for your people. Quality, we know, is the most expensive part. Getting quality wrong can be very expensive, etc. Not delivering to customers, having equipment run poorly, people not performing properly or turning up, etc. So when we put our journey together, we've got to be mindful that what we're trying to do is have a big positive impact on these key success factors. However, oh, sorry, last point. When we have our different performance measures, they should be hung under the appropriate key success factor. However, to focus our journey, we have the concept of drivers for improvement. And there are two drivers, and we talk about TPM and Lean, because TPM was developed before Lean, so Lean could actually work, or the Toyota production system could actually work. So I'll just go through TPM first. TPM is all about getting the equipment, making sure the equipment's working perfectly, and we use a measure called overall equipment effectiveness as a driver to focus our efforts. And if we get overall equipment effectiveness right, what we find is our breakdowns and plant and equipment works better, our quality improves significantly, and our safety improves significantly. So it has an impact, and our costs come down, etc. So then we probably deliver better. And OEE is set up as a driver that correlates to good output. So the idea being, if OEE goes up 5%, you make 5% more good output, or you do it in 5% less time. And often TPM is very much orientated around different production areas. So you go and pick or divide your plant up into production areas, and then you pick the bottleneck areas and you start working in those areas. On the other side of the equation, we have our Lean, which is all about lead time and lead time reduction, getting rid of the non-value-adding wastes. We talk about the 7 wastes, or in some cases 8. And this correlates to inventory levels. So what should happen is your supply chain, or your boundaries for your value stream and your measuring of your lead time, as lead time reduces, the inventory levels in that process will reduce, and that has a big impact on not only cost but again quality. If things aren't lying around, or you haven't got excess inventory lying around, less chance of getting damaged, and etc. So it's all about value streams, and looking at value streams. And again, you normally start with your dominant product, the one that's most important to the business, because it'll have the biggest impact on the key success factors. And not to mention, or not to forget, that we also have production support areas we have to work on. If we want our production areas to work, or our value streams to work, the production support areas like the maintenance department, the lab, or the quality department, etc., all have to be part of it as well. So what are the components of the journey? Well, I guess the model we look at is that we start off with values, and I think everything we do is about, you have our company value, or you have your company values. It's the way you want people to behave. So the journey should support the company values that you have, which is very important, like respect for people and working in a team, if they are your values. Now, the principles behind TPM and Lean, I think we'll the two main ones in the middle, the big ones, lead time or just-in-time, flow, and the right one's all about quality, and they talk about different terminologies, Japanese terminologies like Jikinta, which is automated quality visual management, so you can see quality problems at the earliest possible time. Then on the other side, you've got operator reliability, or TPM part. You've got to have that, and then you've got your people, getting all your people engaged and involved in improvement, not just your specialists. So it's a different way of thinking, and it's getting that thinking. Now, how do you get that thinking in an organisation? Is you have methods, and there are a lot of continuous improvement methods. The 5S, the single minute exchange to die, or self reduction, pull systems, error proofing, standard work, statistical process control, root cause analysis. There are many, many methods out there that we can apply, and underneath those methods are the different tools we use. Might be 5S audits, it might be A3 summary sheets for doing a root cause analysis, it might be standardized worksheets, etc. There are a lot of tools we'll have which we need to help get the methods to work. The key to all this is recognize that this is a whole system, and the Toyota production system is a system of integrated activities. It's not cherry picking, oh, we'll go and do 5S this cycle because that's on the list, then we'll go and do self reduction, then we'll go and do we've got to integrate it all, and this is where what they call the activities and focus comes into it. When you're doing improvement, you can either do it using cross-functional teams, you can do it using area-based teams, you can do it using as a project, and getting projects done by project engineering, for example. Can be events, Kaizen events, can be given to an individual to go and do something. So there's different activities that we need to incorporate into our planning. And the last part is the focus, which I've spoken about. You have your production focus, especially orientated around the TPM and getting equipment running perfectly, your production support, your maintenance, your value streams, getting your main value streams going and reducing lead time. And the other one, people development, because it's the engagement of people. It's growing our people so they can find problems at the earliest possible time. So the 3 skills we want everyone in the company to have if you want to be successful on your journey is they've got to be good at problem solving, they've got to be good at visual workplace, identifying, creating a workplace so they can see their problems at the earliest possible time, and finally prevention at source, which is about being able to stop problems from eventuating or occurring. And just on this activities thing, something a lot of people, again, some people don't sort of pay enough attention to is the fact we do have cross-functional teams for a specific reason, we have area-based teams for a specific reason. And this slide probably helps capsulate the reason between the difference between the two. Your cross-functional teams tend to be out there looking for, if you go and do a Pareto of all your losses or all your wastes, you go and work on the big ones and you set up a cross-functional team because that gives you the biggest bang for your buck. And what we tend to find is the solutions they come up with tend to be, if they're technically orientated, as in let's fix up the chute that keeps blocking up all the time, everyone goes, yes, about time you did it, that's great, we've got a solution to our problem. If, however, the problem is that people don't know how to check the chute or how to keep the chute prepared properly or how to clean it out correctly, just putting a new chute in isn't going to solve the problem because it'll probably get clogged up again. Area-based teams is about developing people to develop their skills so they know how to operate the plant perfectly, and then also how to prevent problems from occurring, finding defects at the earliest possible time. And it's what we call like working at the bottom end of the Pareto chart, looking at all the little things and fixing up all the little problems. And we find the area-based teams are really good at doing that, and it develops your high-performance team. Both have different methodologies, both have different models, both are absolutely critical. And when we go into a plant and look at how they're progressing, what you typically find is, if you look at all the loss and wastes, probably about 50% of them will probably be best addressed through cross-functional teams, and the other 50% need to be addressed through area-based teams and people development. So again, something we need to really factor into our improvement planning. So, and the next point is, how long should we plan out for? And I guess the key findings from our friend Mr. Joel Barker was that if you want to be successful, those with the longest time perspective are the most successful. Joel Barker's produced some excellent videos. We use one, Business of Paradigms, in all our workshop training. He's also did a video called The Power of Vision, and he looked at people and companies and countries and which were the most successful and why. And the conclusion was people with the longest time perspective, people who look out the furthest, are the ones who become most successful. So what we've found is when we're putting our continuous improvement plan together, we need to look out. So we find a 5-year master plan is probably about the minimum time frame you want to go for the overall picture. Again, our experience when we work with clients throughout Australia and New Zealand, if their typical average starting point, it's going to take them at least 5 years to get close to best practice, world-class operational excellence. You then want something a little bit more focused, so you have a 1-year plan, and we then suggest you have something very focused, which is what we're doing for the next 3 or 4 months, and we tend to work in cycles. So cycles about 12 to 14 weeks. We know people can stay focused on that, and therefore we try to put a plan together for each cycle, and then we review each plan before the end of the cycle. And but you need that bigger picture. You need the year, and you need the 5 years of being our learning. So what are the critical parts of a master plan? We see the critical parts are education and training. We see we need reactive improvement, so that we reactive improvement is the effective daily review meeting, etc. We need people development, value stream focused improvement activities, production focused improvement activities if we're going down and trying to get the TPM working, value streams if we're trying to get the lean working and the processes sorted out. Our production support activities. We also include site processes, and what we mean by that is we go to some sites where they might have an effluent plant to handle all the waste coming out of the plant. They might have, you might do energy reduction type initiatives across the site. So there's some things that you do across the site rather than across a value stream or across a production area. So that's why we sometimes have that heading in there. And the last one is leadership activities, having leadership team meetings and the different forms of leadership we need within the organisation. So they're sort of the critical parts we've found that make up a master plan. Determining the focus of your activities is another important thing to think about. And what we've found is in determining the focus, we need to remember there's 3 critical parts of a continuous improvement strategy. In other words, how we're going to win with improvement. And again, we've talked about this in many of our previous webinars. There's reactive improvement, and this is where things don't go perfectly for us. So how quickly do we get things back to where they should be? So in other words, we have a daily review meeting and someone reports that we had a 5% quality loss last night. Well, how do we get so we don't have that happen again, and how do we stop it from ever happening again? So reactive improvement's about having very effective daily review meetings and very good problem solving to root cause and etc. So that's, and if we're not good at doing that, if we're not good at daily management in the business, people are too busy running around addressing day-to-day issues and don't have time to do the proper, what I call proactive improvement. The second one is stable production plan. If you don't have a stable production plan right across the value streams, you will have a lot of firefighting going on, and again, very disruptive. And the third one is what most of us focus on, improvement, and that's about taking us on this journey to operational excellence or world class, and we call that proactive improvement. How do we increase our capability? By eliminating losses and waste. So 3 is very important, which is the proactive improvement, but what we've found is if we don't get the 1 and 2 under control as we progress the journey, we're going to struggle. So again, in our putting our plan together and creating a template, we need to make sure we do cover these items off. So just in summing that, in our focus we have our reactive improvement, which is striving to get back to standard, stable production plan, striving to eliminate disruption and firefighting so we can strive for our improvement vision through our proactive. However, we need to remember Jeffrey Liker's learning about sustaining improvement. And Jeffrey Liker has written many books. His most famous and first one was The Toyota Way, 14 Management Principles to Make the World's Greatest Manufacturer. Since then he's made or has produced a number of other excellent books. One was The Toyota Way for Continuous Improvement, and this was written probably about 7 years after his first book, and by then he had a lot more experience of applying what he'd written in his first few books, and he came out in that book and explained that from his learning about sustaining improvement, because a lot of sites they start and they do some great improvement, but then after 6 months it tends to have fallen away. I was at a site last week in Sydney, and again they're talking about in one area they did some setup reduction Kaizen event, very successful 3-day event at the time, and addressed a lot of issues to improve setups on their equipment. However, because that was the event, and then they walked away from it, and then they started doing some excellent work on one-piece flow in another area of the plant. Guess what happened to the area with the setup reduction? All went back to the old ways after about 6 months. So what Jeffrey Lyko talks about is the need to be organic in our thinking rather than mechanistic. In other words, lean TPM is not just going out using tools like setup reduction. It's about understanding growing people, and that we have like a living organism out there. We have all these people out there, and if we don't grow them and keep them involved in improvement, it will fall away. And to I guess reinforce that point, he uses the analogy of thermodynamics and entropy. Now, thermodynamics is a science of heat transfer that was developed during the Industrial Revolution when they invented steam engines, and all of a sudden they came to the realization that they thought if they put more steam into the steam engine, it would go faster and stronger. Unfortunately, what happened was, at a certain point, the steam engine just got hotter and hotter and didn't go any faster. And this is where some energy going into a system will actually dissipate. And they came up with this term entropy. Entropy can be viewed as the amount of energy in a physical system that's not available to do work. And they generated various laws to support thermodynamics, and one of them was the second law, which is entropy or disorder will naturally increase over time. And simply put, if you get a cold drink of water with ice cubes in it in a room of temperature that we're all experiencing today, quite a warm day, you put that on the table, and after a period of time the cold will dissipate and go back to room temperature. The same thing if you get a hot kettle, boil the kettle, you walk away, come back an hour later, the kettle cools down. It's natural decrease in temperature. So what happens with improvement, and the analogy that Jeffrey Lyko was using, is we go out there and we do a Kaizen event, and we're putting all this energy into the area and all the energy into the people and having wonderful outcome, and we boil the kettle, so to speak, but we walk away and the kettle will naturally go cold. So the only way to overcome that is you've got to keep at it. Once you start in an area, you've got to keep at it, and keep doing a little bit each day, each week, to keep people engaged, and that way you'll sustain your previous improvements. So, creating a master plan template for your site. Here's an example of a master plan for 15 cycles on the basis that a cycle is 3 to 4 months, so you try to do 3 cycles a year, and it spans over 15 cycles is 5 years. Now, I'm not going to go through in detail of all this, but I'll show you just a little extract of it. From a big picture perspective, you can see it starts with a couple of teams on the left, then you get more teams, and then progressively you get more and more and more teams, and that's the cascading of improvement across a site, especially if you're doing the production-focused one. So just having a very close look at that little section. To the left, you'll see production improvement activities where we start with 2 teams, then we move into, and in this case you've got a couple of shifts there, so we start moving into some area-based teams, and we start moving into further cross-functional teams to keep people engaged and involved. Now, every plan is going to be different depending on where you're starting from on your journey. For example, we go into some sites, and this plan would work quite well, where we start off with a cross-functional team first to improve our performance, to free up time of the operators. Then we, because we've increased performance by, or OE by 10% plus, we can then stop the line for 1 or 2 hours each week and do area-based team improvement activity called work area management, or WAM. Some sites we go to, yes, we go and improve the performance of the line, but what we find is that the operators, because they're running multi-shifts, don't have a standard way of doing things, and they all operate the line differently. And sometimes we have to go back to basics and teach them about base skills and center lining the equipment and getting a standard way of operating the plant before we start going into area-based team activity. So there'd be a different cycle on there. So like I said, every situation is different. It's sort of understanding what's happening at your site, where your site's coming from when you map out your plan. This is an example of an annual plan. So it's just taking that plan and saying let's spread it over 12 months, so a bit clearer, a bit easier to see. We can break it up into a little bit more detail, and finally we would come up with a very simple plan for the cycle. And this is the first cycle one, so there's only 2 teams and a leadership team there. But we can have, you know, some sites have 10, 15 teams running at the same time. So it's having a plan that you monitor every week to make sure things are on track and progressing. So that's what we call the 3 layers of a master plan. And just to finish up, how do we manage the master plan? Well, it's all about plan and monitor progress through 3 to 4 month cycles, supported by what we call pre-cycle strategy planning sessions. So 2 weeks before the end of each cycle, so you've actually got a plan to tell people at the end of the cycle. You reflect on how you went, and we have 5 little things we get sites to do. We look at what we learned from doing our improvement over the previous cycle. Is there anything urgent or current business priorities that we really need to be mindful of, because the whole idea of doing this is to impact on that key success factors and those return on investment for the site. So if something critical comes up, we've got to blend that in. People development plan. If we've started people off, do we want to keep them going? Have we got any future frontline leaders we want to put into cross-functional teams so we can actually develop them and get them to actually lead a cross-functional team before we make them a frontline leader? Our 5-year plan, is that to achieve a certain vision by the end of a certain time frame and get a certain level of performance in the business? Are we on track? Are we doing the right things now that will lead us and feed on to the future? And finally, opportunity sheet. We always invite teams to capture all the opportunities, all the possible improvements. They can't do them all often. They can only do some in their cycle. So the leadership team captures all the opportunities and puts them onto a big common sheet and tries to progressively work at them in relation to all the other priorities, so people know that their ideas are not lost. So they're the sort of things that we put into, and then as you do it, you create a plan for your next cycle, and you update your master plan for your 5 years. And I guess the last point, I'll go back to where I started from with Dwight Eisenhower. Plans are nothing, planning is everything. It's having the right people putting the plans together. This is where often you need education at the front end, so people understand all the things that have got to be considered, and then you want the buy-in from the leaders. So the leaders have to put the plans together. It's not just a CI person going away and coming back and saying, here's the plan. We see the most successful plans are the ones where you sit down with your leadership team and you map it out on the wall and you map it out on the chart and you draft it up together, where there's common understanding as to why things going before other things and the issues you go through. And we've got checklists that can help you do that, if that would be of help. So that's that uses up our 30 minutes. I hope that's been of some help. How can we help you? Nelson's spoken about membership. We certainly commend that to you, so you can become part of the CI community and learn from each other and etc. Now, we've also got our continuous improvement community LinkedIn page where you can post questions and engage in conversations. We're also on YouTube where we share these webinars, etc. And as a member, you can ring us anytime, and if you've got any questions, we're always here to help out. How can we help you further? If that spreadsheet I showed you, it's got 3 sheets to it. Again, nothing brilliant or fancy about it, but we've sort of evolved it over the years trying to capture those key critical parts. So if anyone would like a copy of that spreadsheet, in appreciation of you attending our webinar, just send us an email either to the CTPM or to Nelson or to myself, and we can flick you a copy of it, and then hopefully it may be of use to you. And with that, I'd like to hand over if there are any questions in the audience before we finish up for the day. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ross. So if anyone has any questions, any last questions, please press the raise your hand button now, or type in any questions in the control panel box provided, and we'll try to get to it before the end of the session. We do have one question here for you, Ross, and it was in regards to, well, you mentioned at the end in regards to developing the CI master plan that you involve the leadership team to draft it up. But in regards to monitoring the CI master plan, who would be the best people to get involved in that process?
Well, obviously your CI manager, coordinator should be keeping a close eye on the plan, because they should be the knowledge expert on CI to help guide the leadership team. However, the leadership team have to take ownership to the plan. The thing I get very, I guess, stirred up about is I go to some sites where they have a leadership team meeting, and they all look to the CI manager or the CI coordinator and say, tell us how the teams are going. It's the managers who should take responsibility for the development and the CI activities within their site. They're the ones who should be monitoring the plan and reviewing it and adjusting it and taking ownership to it. So the coordinator CI manager is more of the administrator of the plan. It's the leadership. So leadership should be reviewing obviously every week they've got to review the schedule for the week at a minimum, and then 2 weeks before the end of the cycle they should have a formal planning session for at least, say, 4 hours and go through those 5 criteria we showed in the slide and readjust, create a new plan, and look at the impact that has on the bigger picture.
Okay, thank you. It doesn't seem like we have any further questions. So just before we get going, just a quick reminder that our next webinar will be the online CI Masterclass held on the 14th of February on ensuring correct operation of your production plant and equipment. So we hope you can all attend. Please feel free to contact us at any time if you have any further questions or require any further information on these sessions. And as Ross mentioned, if you want to get a copy of that spreadsheet, just shoot us through an email. We can send that through to you. On behalf of everyone here at CTPM, thank you for attending, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.